As a father of a 20-month-old, I've witnessed my fair share of moments when I couldn't believe my eyes. If you're a parent, even if you have grown kids, I bet you have your fair share of those moments too. In fact, we could probably swap war stories. I'll never forget the time that my son, his name is Denver, we were out in the living room watching TV, just hanging out, and then all of a sudden, he disappears from our vision, our peripheral. And we're like, okay, he's fine. He's just kind of playing with toys. But then there's that moment, and parents, you understand this, where he got quiet. And quiet doesn't always mean good. Quiet could also mean bad. So he got quiet. Me and my wife looked at each other. We got up, looked around the couch, and we saw our 20-month-old son on all fours with his face in a doggy bowl. That's right, in a doggy bowl, eating dog food. I don't know where he got this from, obviously the dog, but it was absolutely insane. I couldn't believe I saw my son doing this. I can't make this stuff up. And with stories like this, you can imagine what I thought and felt. I truly had no words. I was in a state of shock. And while this is a humorous story from the front lines of parenting, most of us have stories that aren't so humorous. The sad reality is that sometimes life can hit us so hard that it also puts us in a state of utter and absolute shock. Maybe you've heard about one of those situations, or you've maybe walked through them yourself. But when it happens, we're nearly paralyzed. Something has happened that we can't make sense of. It totally catches us off guard, out of nowhere, and we're left reeling. That, my friends, is what we're gonna be talking about today. We've all experienced moments that caught us off guard, made life feel uncertain, or caused a lot of hurt. Maybe you were blindsided by a devastating breakup or divorce. Maybe even now, years later, you're not quite sure what to do next. Maybe you lost your job during a corporate downsizing. It was unexpected and you were completely unprepared. Maybe you have a loved one experiencing a really tough illness. It came out of nowhere, and everyone in your family is just figuring things out as they go. The thing about these painful moments is that they often hit us out of nowhere. And because of that, we can't really anticipate how they'll make us feel. And because of that, we can't really know how we'll respond to these moments as well. Because we're all wired differently, we all experience hurt differently. But that doesn't change the fact that the hurt, well, it just hurts. And when life hurts, we all find ourselves wondering what to do next. In this series, we're talking about Joseph, one of the most prominent figures in the Old Testament. As we said last week, Joseph lived a very full, eventful life. That life also included a lot of unexpected moments, challenges, and pain. So far, we've read about one of Joseph's biggest challenges, family. A lot of us can relate. As a brief recap, Joseph was his father's favorite child from his father's favorite wife. His father gave him a special coat that singled him out even more. On top of that, Joseph began having dreams about ruling over all his brothers and his parents. Naturally, Joseph wisely kept his mouth shut and kept those dreams to himself, right? No. Instead, he ran and told his brothers all about them. You can imagine how that went over. So, in summation, Joseph's brothers were not okay with him being their dad's favorite. Also, they were not okay hearing about his dreams of ruling over them one day. And that's where we pick up the next part of Joseph's story. One day, he went out to meet his brothers. They saw him in the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. "Here comes that dreamer," they said to each other. "Come now, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns and say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams." This makes your childhood sibling seem pretty nice, right? Fortunately for Joseph, one of his brothers intervened to save his life. When Reuben heard this, he tried to rescue him from their hands. "Let's not take his life," he said. "Don't shed any blood. Throw him into this cistern here in the wilderness, but don't lay a hand on him." Reuben said this to rescue him from them and take him back to his father. So the brothers listened to Reuben. Still, it wasn't pretty. When Joseph arrived, they ripped off the special coat his father had given him, and they threw him into a deep well. But then a new opportunity presented itself. The brothers noticed a caravan of traders approaching. Judah said to his brothers, "What will we gain by killing our brother? We'd have to cover up the crime. Instead of hurting him, let's sell him to those Ishmaelite traders. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood." And his brothers agreed. Sometime later, Reuben returned to get Joseph out of the cistern. When he discovered that Joseph was missing, he tore his clothes in grief. Then he went back to his brothers and lamented, "The boy is gone. What will I do now?" Then the brothers killed a young goat and dipped Joseph's robe in its blood. They sent the beautiful robe to their father with this message: "Look at what we found. Doesn't this robe belong to your son?" Joseph may not have been killed, but he still lost everything that mattered to him: his family, his freedom, and his home. We can't imagine the fear, despair, uncertainty, anger, and the hurt that he felt. He was betrayed by his own family. He was left for dead. It was about as hopeless as you can get. The good news is that Joseph's story was just getting started. And this story would have even more twists and turns, moments and events that would test Joseph's faith and hope. But today, I want to focus on one small phrase that we see later in this story. It's a small phrase with a big encouraging message for all of us today. And that phrase is this: the Lord was with Joseph. Joseph didn't have a lot going for him during that time. But when he was in despair and wondering how life would turn out, he could rely on one single truth: God was with him. This truth didn't change the reality of Joseph's situation, but he wasn't alone. This truth didn't mean that Joseph could see where the story was going, but he could know that he wasn't entirely dependent on himself to get out of the situation. This truth didn't mean that he had a reason or explanation for the pain in his life, but he didn't have to figure things out by himself. The same is true for us today. We can know and trust that God is with us no matter what, which means when there's nothing you can do, God is with you. When life hands you pain and disappointment and you don't know what to do, God is with you. Now, as Christians, we hear this message all the time. Because we hear it so often, the words can lose their impact. Plus, just because we know it's true doesn't mean we feel it. But think about this for a second. God is with you. Not in some abstract way. He is literally present in you through His Spirit. He is with you all the time. You may feel alone, but you never are. When we can truly understand and embrace this truth, it changes things. Our circumstances may not change. As we'll see, even though God was with Joseph, he wasn't immediately reunited with his family. But this truth can change our perspective on our situation. Maybe more than anything, it can give us hope that we can keep going, even when it feels like we can't. Knowing that God is with us may not change our circumstances, but it might just change us. It might just give us enough hope to keep going, even in the midst of seemingly hopeless circumstances. It's easy to give into the hurt we've experienced. It's easy to let fear overwhelm us or let anger consume us. We have a lot of reasons to let difficult and sometimes unfair situations get the last word. But when we know that God is with us, the uncertainty of life doesn't get the last word. God does. So, how can this truth play out in our everyday and our unexpected moments? There are no formulas or easy answers for getting through hard times. But here are two ways we can begin to embrace this reality. First, we can be real. Everyone will go through tough times and pain. All throughout the Bible, we see believers experiencing difficulties. At the same time, we see these people being real and honest with God about their struggles. There are no cliches to make the hard times just go away. Our job isn't to just suck it up and act like everything is okay. If we believe that God is with us, we can know that God is okay with our honest questions, doubts, and fears. So be real with Him. And second, we can remind ourselves that God is with us. You may know this, but things did eventually work out for Joseph. But we know that now because we can read his story in the Bible. When Joseph was in the middle of his story, he didn't know how it would turn out, but he held on to one thing. God was with him. And in those moments when life is the toughest, that's when this reminder is most important. God is with you too. In your story, it isn't over yet. Our life will be full of moments when we don't know what to do about our pain. But we can know God is with us no matter what. But God has also given us other people to help us walk through our challenges and our struggles. Some of those people are in this room. So we can know that not only is God with us, but He's also given us His church to walk with us through hard times. It will give you hope when things feel hopeless. It won't make the difficult circumstances go away, but you'll have something to count on. You'll know that you're not alone.